Hi everybody, this is Karak with ACG, and today I'm bringing you the review for Afro Samurai 2. Less Afro Samurai and more his pals. It's an episodic game based a bit on the anime, a bit on what it would be like to go crazy in those sword-selling cigar shops with a rap record on repeat. You play as Kuma, and not Afro this time, which is good, because the subtitle is Revenge of Kuma, which is in some way probably a way to get you to think that playing him is even 1/1,000,000th as cool as playing as Afro himself. It's the equivalent of being called Lethal Weapon the Murtaugh stories, where you play as Danny Glover, having a hard time waking up and rubbing Bengay all over his body after going on a patrol. Be that as it may, you play as Kuma, trying to track down Afro, after watching Afro pare down Kuma's family tree like a paid landscaper uses swords instead of those shears. Yeah, it makes about as much sense as it sounds, but the first Afro game was never about making sense. It was about mixing a cool story from the anime and excellent gameplay with a licensed audio soundtrack, and it succeeded in pretty much just one of those things. So let's see if Afro Samurai 2 The Revenge of Kuma improves on the original, which is pretty much possible as long as it turns on and gets to the menu screen, or if it continues in the fail state Afro Samurai 1 had, which is fairly interesting visuals and a fighting engine that's as weak as a Drake Meek rap battle. So here's the review for Afro Samurai: barehead-wearing protagonist, cyborg revenge, Matrix White Room training courses, and collision detection that follows some unknown personal space rule. As always, remember to subscribe if you like the review. Graphics are up first. Where do I begin? First, the characters and the environments offer a diverse training course in perfecting how to make a game look last gen, with low-resolution textures just shotgunned around the level. With pride, I guess, and low poly count characters imported from what appears to be Way of the Samurai 1, or maybe even 2. The game just looks bad, and though cell shading is used, and it's a tangible and laudable programming technique for hiding low-budget resources, this looks Escape from Dead Island bad at times. Animation stutters and stalls at various times, skipping entire sections of animations, resulting in one of the crunchiest and bad ways fighting games I've had to watch in years. Gone is that slicker fluidity of the original title, and it's replaced with a bouncy, stutter-ridden engine that's simply atrocious for atrociousness' sakes. During fatalities, expect to lose 20 to 30 frames of animation between activating the attack and then seeing the various ends, with the middle just deleted, because who needs to know what the hell happens in the middle of anything, right? This thing runs terribly, dropping frame rates to single digits from time to time, but almost never running fluidly, and with mind-numbingly bad frame latency spread throughout, you get a game that at times hinges on QTEs where even they have a delay input. A delay input on QTEs sounds like fun, doesn't it? That doesn't even make sense in the world that I live in. Now, aside from a few characters with cool but unsurprising designs, you're left with uninspired carbon copy clone enemies released from the enemy factories to shamble around Kuma endlessly until he decides to engage them, and while doing so, he travels through some of the most boring and just fairly poorly presented bland levels I've seen in gaming in the last couple years. Every level just gets worse and more boring. I mean, it has to be some kind of trick, right? At least the character's animations on his attacks look pretty good, though there's some issues with that later. All in all, I would say not very good. Sound, music, and voice.
You don't look so good, motherfucker. And I bet, son, the shit you don't fight so good neither, with your ass all busted up.
First up is sound, and you would think that some attention would be taken in a game that seems to rampantly be interested in telling everyone that they're working with supposedly world-class artists, but you don't find that in the sound. Not only is the mixing all over the place, but it's so bad I played it on 3 different sound systems to see if something was messed up on my end. Sounds range from insanely quiet to ragingly loud. They are hellaciously mixed across the sound spectrum, with weapons having no real sonic impact and randomly just sprouting wings on the volume meter and playing at like twice the volume. It's terrible. Destruction in the level sounds like someone smashing a pile of leaves when it's supposed to be wood, and other sonically unimpressive samples. Honestly, the sound was just not good at all. Music. You know, it's probably got awesome music, and Reza's working on it, but because the same 1 to 3 tracks I heard sounded cool the first time doesn't mean by the 44th replay I wasn't ready to eat my own face. I don't want to spend 2 hours hearing a song on repeat that has a lyric that talks about pocket pussies. But lo and behold, I just did. Sadly, the beats themselves are pretty good, though they rarely, if ever, fit into the actual scene, resulting in lots of action and music crosstalk where something's happening and the music seems to think something else is happening, and the result is akin to a dude getting a glass of water with the Flight of the fucking Valkyries playing in the background like it is the best glass of water ever. Like I said, pretty okay tracks maybe, but absolutely overstayed their welcome to the point that other people in the house complained about them. And voice. You know, remembering that this game doesn't actually have Samuel L. Jackson as the main character in it, you're stuck with everyone else, and well, it's pretty bad. Whether it's the overused and overwrought misuse of effects on characters' voices to make them sound otherworldly, resulting in difficult to understand passages, or just lack of tonal inflection in passages unless someone is yelling, "What have you done?" for the 444th time, it's just really not that good from a gameplay standard, but even for an anime, personally, that's how I feel. Gameplay. Revenge of Kuma is an episodic game, as I said, with Chapter 1 starting out with Kuma witnessing his family's death at the hands of Afro, then returning as a cyborg to exact revenge. And, well, from that point on, the story takes a backseat to the attack button, and I mean that, one button, because even though you do unlock new arts, they all just use one button, as well as the occasional finishing button sometimes, resulting in a fighting engine that has all of the entertainment response of pressing A to mourn in the last Call of Duty game. As you progress in the story, you unlock skills which can be upgraded and upgrade those arts, but even that feels shallow with the most rote and basic upgrade paths you could possibly imagine, such as more damage and more speed, or one more hit in a combo. And that's it. You basically run around in the barest of environments, smash the shit out of the attack button as if it insulted your family heritage, and miss everything, but somehow still kill everything. Oh yeah, and that's because the fighting engine in this game is terrible. You know, combat in a fighting game, to excel, has to be a sublime mix of movement, technique, and timing. Hell, even in an okay game it has to. This game has none of that. First, movement. While you're on your own, it's fairly stunted, but it's when you're in battle and you miss an enemy by 1/4 of the screen and he explodes into a stuttering FPS dropping mess of blood, they begin to feel doubt. It's like watching a fight with the 4 worst stuntmen in the world being filmed on a potato and just pretending to hit one another whenever something flies past their face. Technique is pounded mercilessly into the ground with the advent of the one-button combat that results in you also sometimes hitting triangle to block. That's if the enemy doesn't miss entirely, which they mostly do, resulting in you blocking an enemy who's 6 feet away from you who misses, and then both of you standing there in silent agreement that this will never be mentioned at later family reunions. How a worse system of fighting and combat was created for the sequel to a game that had some of its own issues with camera and just battle, I will never know, but this is like someone looked at the original fighting game and said, you know what this game needs? Stuttering and the lack of collision detection, and everyone else must have thought those two things were something completely different. To reiterate, this is a character who's supposedly a master martial artist. Even one of his arts is called Master, and yet he couldn't hit a dead person in a morgue if the morgue was made of dead person bodies. Now, when it comes to timing, well, there isn't any, except for the lagging and absolutely trite cutscenes, because once you're in real battle, just wow. First, the enemy's AI is a train wreck, where planes are also magically attracted to the train wreck just to increase the destruction and insanities because it would be more enjoyable. Imagine AI that just stands there because the best way to fight is to run at full speed into the local landscape as if you don't give a shit, or just stand there and stare at you, each of the characters in some kind of spaghetti western moment, except no one ever draws their gun and someone just dies of old age. It's some of the worst AI I've ever seen, and that doesn't even get into the bugs. Things like enemies dropping from the sky, but instead of landing on the earth, they just hovered 20 to 30 feet above it, like they were a returning archangel, just checking in to see how I was doing, and didn't know that by not falling to earth, they stopped my ascension to the next level. The easiest way to describe it would be to take one part horrible hit detection and one part horrid control, and you have a frustration festival. Population, you. The game tries to break it up from time to time with the aforementioned terrible QTEs, as well as a couple boss battles that are so riddled with FPS hits and bad camera angles that there has to be a name for the disease this could spontaneously give you, like jam flood or hose hit or boss brittle. I would have laughed had I not been playing through it and experiencing these camera angles that seem magically attracted to hiding behind the environment, afraid of the misaiming fighter currently engaged in shadow puppet combat on screen. It's horrid. Now, what the game tries to do with its story, I guess, is okay, but it delivered it in such a way that its positives are mired within the negatives of its gameplay, resulting in a mismatch that it just simply can't possibly win. Luckily, the game doesn't last long, with you traveling through a couple boringly designed and even more terribly thought out locations until you get to the very end and you get a "thank God I'm done" message. Actually, that might have said "to be continued," but I think I blacked out a couple times. Fun factor. Yeah, no. Honestly, nothing was fun in this. It wasn't fun to see characters from the anime in a game because they were treated with the disrespect of Dr. Dre's female dinner guests. A game to be fun has to have some traction within its controls, and here the game controls like a huffer that put the brown bag over its head and inhaled the entire paint department at Lowe's. Enemy AI is horrendous many times, easily being left for 20 to 30 seconds without engaging if you want to test it. The level design's basic, uninspired, and has terrible graphics throughout, with frame rate hits that make you wonder just how bad this would have looked if they'd tried to make the graphics look even like last gen. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. Afro Samurai 2 is a never touch it. This thing is not only a disservice to the anime, it's a disservice to games. Hell, it's a disservice to the $5 I would pay someone else to play it if I were asked to again. It's flatly unacceptable as a marketable product. Simple math says episode 2 is going to come after 1, but I have to put a -1 in there to indicate me not playing the sequel. I'd rather drink whatever fluids come out of Ozzy Osbourne than play another minute of this. It is a terrible game through and through. So that's it for me. Hope you liked the review. If you did, hit a thumbs up. If you didn't, of course, always hit thumbs down, and peace out.
Afro, forget about the 2 headbands. This is your family now. When will you let go?
When I have avenged my father.
And what will be left for you then? What will be left of us?
What is this place?